Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our meeting of the Climate Change and Nature Recovery Strategic Transformation Committee. We've got some colleagues in the room and online, so welcome to you all. We've got some guests with us who are going to give us our presentation on bus reform, but just run through the standing items as usual. So have we got any apologies for absence?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Apologies from Councillor Stewart Rice and from Councillor Andrea Lewis.
Thank you. Are there any disclosures of personal and prejudicial interest that anybody needs to make? Nope, I'm not seeing any. And are we happy to approve the minutes of the last meeting? Yeah, Maya is proposing there. I'm seeing nods on screen. We'll consider those approved.
Okay.
Thank you. Right, I'm just looking at the screen in front of me. We've got a number of colleagues joined us to take us through the item on the bus reform. So I can see from the council, I can see Hugh. Welcome, Hugh Jones. And from Transport for Wales, I can see Maddie Goodson and Alistair Stevens-Brown. Have I missed anybody who's joining us for this item? Because the screen doesn't always tell me who everybody is. No?
Not from Transport for Wales, thank you.
Okay, lovely. Did you want to say anything, Councillor Stevens, before I let them launch in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. No, just as usual with the STCs, thanks to you for agreeing to agenda this. I think it is a pertinent timing for us to go through with Transport for Wales on what the initial plans are in terms of the bus franchising, and as I've said before to yourself, Chair, and others, that as you as members, or us as members rather, certainly the ones who know our communities in and out. I can tell you every nook and cranny you can sign on Penarale, as I'm sure you can of West Cross, and same to a number of the other members on the call. So in terms of Transport for Wales, I certainly have the expertise in terms of transport, but with a bit of luck with the collaborative working and the informed discussion that we have here, and further on, hopefully we can get something good out of this anyway, Chair. So I'll pass you over.
That's great, thanks. So we're going to hand over now to the presentation from Transport for Wales. I think it's fair to say the objective of bringing this to committee is both to look at us feeding into the consultation, but also hoping to offer some of our insight around how best to engage with our communities as well. So welcome questions and comments on both those points from members. So over to you, Maddie and Alistair.
Thank you. I will just quickly share my screen. I do have a sort of set of slides with me to take us through. And thank you, and put in hand out, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Maddie. I'm a senior project manager at Transport for Wales, and I've been working with colleagues in South West Wales as a region for well over a year and a half now, to essentially co-create the blueprint for franchising and work towards being able to go live in 2027. If I may, I'd just like to build on the point that was formerly raised. I think it's really important, whilst TFW do have, many tools in the toolbox to bring to this, it's absolutely essential that we work with local authority partners that have that local knowledge to build that in, and this is really what our regional working has been all about, is making sure that the approach we take works for the region and picks up the local requirements that are important to all of us here. So I would, if I may, just like to start by genuinely sharing my thanks to colleagues in Swansea for supporting us, and Councillor Fogarty for your excellent point around how this group may be able to help us moving forward in the engagement space as well. So just to dive into the things that we're going to cover today then, I'll take you through the sort of general update of franchising, just briefly covering where we are in the process, and then we'll dive a little bit then into the live public engagement, so what we're engaging on and why that's important, and then the timescales for people to sort of get involved. And just as a quick recap, some of you may or may not recall, we did join a climate change and nature recovery STC a little while ago, I think approximately 1 year ago as well, where we shared a really initial introduction to bus reform. So if I just move us along, just to sort of set the context of where we are, and I'll go right from the beginning if that's okay, just in case anyone isn't au fait with the bus reform plans. So in 2022, the Welsh Government published the One Network, One Timetable, One Ticket consultation, which was, I think, quite positively received. 96% of respondents agreed that change was needed to the way that we run bus services. So a real sort of backing there for the changes that are coming in at present. Then moving forward a couple of years, TfW and Welsh Government started to work on mapping out what that vision for bus reform could look like and how franchising may in fact work. So we published what we call a roadmap document, which has seen some sort of subsequent updates as our thinking and approach has progressed. But I'm happy to drop a link in the chat to that shortly, just in case anyone hasn't seen that. But I'd really recommend dropping into that because it gives a really nice overview of what we're thinking. And then more recently, the bill has been introduced to the Senedd. So the vision that was set out in the early consultation has now been translated into legislation. And currently, we're just at the end of stage 1 scrutiny and expecting the Climate Change Committee to actually share a report on that quite shortly as well. So that essentially, this is really important because that provides the legislative backing for us to be able to progress with bus reform. We're hoping that early next year, the bill will have made a successful passage through the Senedd and therefore will give us the legal framework on which we're able to start procuring bus franchises. And that is all with the view to being able to go live in South West Wales in 2027. And then we'd essentially be taking a zonal rollout approach or a phased approach to introducing bus franchising to Wales. So we'll start in your region and then the following year move north to North Wales, come back down to South East Wales, and then finally conclude the franchise rollout in Mid Wales in 2030. What is important is that Mid Wales, especially with it being so close to your region as well, doesn't have to wait a full 4-year cycle to see improvements in the bus network. So we've actually been working with them now in the pre-franchising time to be able to introduce some network or some bus enhancements as well in their areas. So they will be able to see or have a taste of what's to come as we work towards franchising. So we think that that's a really important piece just to flag. So just to sort of look more inwardly then to the Southwest specifically, we have been working with officers in the region, like I said, for quite some time. We've actually called that the zonal methodology, which is essentially a framework for regional working it exists across Wales, but obviously starts in South West Wales. And that's really where we're taking a deeper dive into how we can create a zonal or a regional blueprint for franchising. So we're working together to design proposals for the bus network and then looking a little bit more broadly then in terms of any other requirements that need to come in around fleet procurement and so on. And that we're really proud of. We've had that sort of codified across Wales with the WLGA and the cabinet members. And like I said, we remain incredibly grateful for the support that your officers have provided us as part of that journey. So that has provided the framework for us to develop what we call the base network, and which is really what the focus of our engagement is about. And that is essentially the network that we think we can deliver in 2027 using the same level of resource that we currently have in the system today. And by resource, I mean the funding, I mean the number of buses, I'm so sorry, definitely not dresses, and drivers as well. So how can we balance the resource that we currently have access to provide some network enhancements in 2027 that benefits residents in Swansea. And to achieve that, we have applied what we call a set of network design principles, which essentially aim to make the network as simple and as passenger friendly as possible. So if I just bring that to life with a sort of theoretical example, there may be a corridor anywhere in the region where within an hour, two different bus companies provide a service that are actually only staggered 5 to 10 minutes apart. So within the hour, the passenger they may be able to take 2 trips, but in fact they'd have to wait sort of 50 minutes till the next service arrived. Within the same level of resource, just being able to stagger that journey, so one comes at past and the other comes on the hour, and there's consistently 30 minutes between them, is a really small but effective improvement that does sort of make a material difference for people. So those are some really minor changes that we are able to make that we're hoping will really benefit passengers. There are a few other types of changes that do exist in the proposed network for Swansea, which I'm happy to dive into shortly. I just wanted to flag as well what is remains a really important piece of this is the integration with learner travel. So our proposed base network, I'd just like to give assurance that it does maintain the existing opportunities for school children to travel on the public service network. And we're continuing to look at opportunities where feasible to continue to bolster that, because we do appreciate that learner travel does provide a number of challenges, and if we can harness some opportunities to integrate with the public service network, then we are incredibly open to do so. So just moving us on a little bit, so like I said, the proposed base network is what we've sort of collaboratively developed, and that's really what we're doing our engagement on at the minute. And I've spoken to some of the small changes that do exist, that we have been able to make, that do make a sort of positive difference to people. I appreciate this slide will be quite difficult to view with the two maps side by side. But if we just take it as a sort of visual prompt for now, these are the sort of network maps that we're putting out as part of the public engagement to give people the opportunity to see their whole public transport network as a whole in the area. So in Swansea, we have a Swansea city centre map, and then we've also got a sort of outer Swansea areas and the Gower as well. So that people are able to find their service and understand what has changed and see where it connects into. With it being the base network, obviously there are many areas where there aren't changes, but there are also areas where there are. So some people will see their bus service doesn't change, whereas other people will notice a change. So apologies for the time taken to take us through that introduction, but I just wanted to sort of set the scene a little bit. So like I said, now we're sort of taking that to public engagement, and what we'd really like to do is receive feedback from the public on the routes and the frequency that we've put out, but also stepping back from that, thinking about some of the choices that we all face when we navigate network planning, and that will really help us in October, November, when we're making the updates following the public engagement, to think about what types of changes we're able to make and how they may benefit people. So that could be things around preferences for interchange. We know that some people prefer more direct services, whereas others are more open to sort of interchanging to have a shorter journey. So we'll be looking into that. Preferences around distances walked to the bus stop and so on. So really just trying to understand what people's opinions are on the choices that we face, just to help us sort of make those refinements in time. And then, of course, we know that whilst the public engagement is predominantly focused on our proposed bus network, people will probably want to hear a little bit around the other elements that make their bus experience positive or negative. So we just wanted to provide space then to help people sort of give their input in terms of, would they like to give feedback on customer information, fares and ticketing, the standards of the bus and so on, just so they have a little bit of room to give us some feedback that's important to them as well. Although, like I said, our sort of primary aim of this is to really understand what the feedback is on the bus network that we've developed and how we may go about refining that further to the engagement. When we've received feedback, we'll make some refinements to the network, and then we'll be going through a sort of sign-off process with the region to basically to seek endorsement for that network plan, and that will form the basis then for us to go out and start procuring the services, mobilizing the franchises, and then really importantly then in the coming months before we launch bus reform in South West Wales, getting out there and communicating any plan changes and possibly doing some hyperlocal engagement as well if there are changes that are significant and it would be beneficial for certain communities to have additional touch points as well. So that will be really key because obviously people may give their feedback now, but of course at least 1 to 2 years will pass prior to franchising coming into play. So we'd like to sort of revisit communities in time to give them a notice of what's changing. So our public engagement itself is primarily hosted with a survey, which is accessible online, but we've also provided a dedicated phone line for people to call up if they'd like to speak to someone over the phone to fill it in. And of course, we can also provide printed copies as well, which may be valuable at some of the in-person events. We've set up a number of in-person community drop-ins, which are already posted online. It may be worth noting that actually we recently discussed this with Swansea colleagues, and we've taken some advice just to build in a couple more community drop-in events as well. So I'll share the dates for those as soon as possible, and they'll be online. But they're likely to be in Morriston and Town Hill. So we'll have a number of events, some in Swansea City Centre, and then also the Mumbles and Gorseinon, and then Morriston and Town Hill to get feedback from communities on the network. We'll also be holding some stakeholder workshops, so that will include representative organisations within the region to collect their input on the base network, and then the other areas of interest that they have on the passenger experience. We'll also provide a webinar which will run online so that people can sort of come along and hear from us around our proposals and the work that we're doing. And of course, the communications campaign that sits behind this is really, really important. The more that we can sort of organically spread the message and get that public engagement out to as many people as possible is a really key focus. We'd really like to hear from a true range of people. We know that there are certain demographics or certain areas that are harder to reach. So we're really trying to challenge ourselves to improve our reach into that, and that is really where engagements like today and engaging with a number of different partners that are willing to help us is really key, because they're able to help push out those the message that this engagement is happening and encourage people that they know and family and friends as well to sort of have a look and tell us what they think about the public bus network. We do have an online platform which has all the information that people will hopefully need to find out about the proposed changes. There is an interactive map on there as well. So you're able to sort of go in and select the route that's of interest to you and just find out a little bit about that. And then we also provide a written list of all the bus services alongside some sort of offline maps as well. So we've tried to provide a range of information so that it's accessible to people with different preferences in terms of how they understand and engage with that material. Just a really quick note that we have we've proposed some early renumbering, but only for this purpose as a public engagement. So to make it really simple for a person to understand where a service has changed, in Swansea there'll be a lowercase a just in front of the bus number, and that will signal that there's a change here. Where a service doesn't change, it will keep its existing number. We understand that any changes to bus numbering, will need a good level of engagement and communication to make sure that people understand what is changing. So I'd just like to make it really clear that for today, this is only for the purpose of the public engagement to signal where changes are proposed in the base network. Just then to give you a flavour of the timescales, and then I'll be happy to sort of take any questions as I near the end of the deck. We have launched the public engagement on the 1st of July, so 2 weeks ago, and that will run then until the 23rd of September, providing 12 weeks for people to give feedback. We wanted to start it in the 1st of December and run it till the end of September, because we're aware that with the school summer holidays being right in the middle, that will mean some people will have time and be able to access the engagement, whereas others will like that window either side as well. So we've tried to wrap that in. Then in October, we'll really sort of dive into the data and all the feedback that we've collected, and we'll be working on updating the network plan based off of the feedback received through the engagement, with a view then to coming back to the cabinet in the autumn, preferably November, so that then we can seek endorsement for that network before also sort of collecting sort of like a regional stamp from the CJC as well, just to make sure that it's regionally coherent too. And then I've just listed there the dates where we do have some in-person drop-in events. If anyone, would like to sort of signpost members of the public to this, or indeed as well come along and meet us in person. So the first one will be in Gorsainon Library on the 23rd of July. And like I said, I'll be sharing dates for the events later in the year. I can see that later in the summer, I can see that does say Clydach, but the venues have come back to us, so it's more likely that we'll be progressing with Town Hill now. So I'll update that prior to circulating the pack, if that's okay. And then finally, just in terms of any additional reading or if you'd like to just take a dive into it, at the start of June, we did actually publish a commitment to undertake this public engagement. So I'm happy to sort of share the link to that, and it'll be available in the deck as well when it comes around. But that does just provide a little bit of further context and narrative on this as well, which hopefully I've been able to cover with you today. And I'm happy to take questions, of course, but if there is anything in there that you just wanted to go back and sense check, then I'd hope that that's a really helpful document to support you in doing that. So, Councillor Fogarty, I believe that's all the slides from me there. I hope that I've taken us through all the elements that you would have liked us to cover, but I'd be more than happy to take any questions from yourself and the group as well. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. That was really, a comprehensive presentation. I'll warn you now that I've written down 10 questions.
Okay.
But I will open to colleagues first, as is my way. So I can see a couple of people indicating, and I've got Councillor Baker in the room. So over to you, Councillor Baker.
We got avid adventure travel comes through the estate, the Blaenamice estate. It covers Penlan, Blaenamice. It's from hospital to hospital. It's number 43. People have tried to use first tickets on this on their return. They've told they don't take first tickets. The same the other way around. First do not take adventure travel tickets, which leaves some people, oh, I want to get on that bus, the number 4, say from Singleton, I'll go into town and then back up to the estate. If the 43 is only 1 an hour. I know the 43 is private compared to first. I like to know, are we engaging with with adventure travel as well as first? Because I think we should bring this into the equation, because they travel a lot with out of areas, way out.
Yeah, actually, Maddie, before I bring you in on that one, so just to clarify that all of the bus routes are currently operated privately. Franchising changes that model, but actually, if you could perhaps give us some background on the other changes that customers will see. So they'll obviously see the changes to the routes that you're proposing here, that you're engaging on right now, but changes in terms of ticketing, buses, fleet, all of that. Could you just give us a couple of minutes on other things that are in this mix?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much, and an excellent point raised there. So yes, of course, the network itself is one part of the equation that makes a positive passenger experience. We are looking at a number of improvements that we're able to implement on day one as part of bus franchising, and of course then looking at what can be done over the longer term to make that experience even better. So one of the most significant developments that will be in place on day one is the ability for passengers to purchase integrated tickets. So as Councillor Baker just rightly pointed, integrated ticketing it doesn't exist currently in the region, so you can't purchase a ticket from one bus operator and that works on a different bus operator. You're only travelling with the operator that you've purchased a ticket for. So in the future, in 2027, that wouldn't be the case. You would be able to, as part of the one network, one timetable, one ticket proposition, be able to seamlessly travel between all bus services in the region, to encourage people to sort of make trips between bus services and make that travel as seamless as possible. So that's a really important key development, which we think will, is really beneficial for the region without that being in place today. We'll also be able to start to introduce some new buses. So we know that there has been a pattern of operators not investing in their fleets in the region. So and of course some have been better than others as well. in that, but we'll be able to start to introduce some new buses and bringing them into the region. What it won't be is a completely new fleet across the whole region on day one, just because of the scale of how many buses there are. But we will start to inject new buses in and start to phase out some of the oldest, most polluting fleet too. We are looking also at having new standards of bus stop infrastructure. So again, that won't necessarily come in everywhere on day one, but what we'd like to do is sort of start to introduce a level of consistency that exists regionally and across Wales, so that the information that customers have is available, is very similar in look and feel in any part of Wales. So as a passenger standing in Swansea city centre, I may have a timetable that in the future will look and feel the same as if I was say in a rural North Wales area as well. So as a passenger, I feel comfortable, and I can trust that the information is available to me in a way that that I'll always remember and be able to rely on. So those are sort of some of the main pieces that we're starting to look at that would be available on day one. We're also thinking about the other elements then around would we have some depots that would be in public ownership rather than private ownership, and that will sort of help introduce some sort of value for money responses from the procurement too, so that we can try and get a really strong proposition for franchising on day one.
Thank you. So good news for the users of Route 43 and 25, and a good number of routes across the Swansea area. Councillor Anderson, you're next to indicate.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My question is, you mentioned about school services. What are you going to do for the people that want to go to work early in the morning? We're having, at the moment, to catch taxis, which is a lot of money. So can we have a bit of reassurance that early morning calls for workers, not only early morning, but some like T Koch in Swansea, after 6, there's no bus service there, so people can't get home, again having to use taxis. So what are we going to be doing about getting early morning and later evening services for the workforces?
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. I'm happy to respond to that. So absolutely, improved operating hours are really important. I completely agree with you. We do face the challenge that we're planning within the same level of resource. So of course, to do that requires additional buses, more drivers and so on. So then the question becomes, well, where does that resource come from, and how do we do that within a finite level of resource? So it's not to say that we aren't looking at that. We absolutely are, and we think it's really, really important. But what we'd like to do is be able to sort of work towards a state where that, as the revenue comes in on day one, we're able to then look at regionally, well, how do we, if we're doing well, how do we put that money back into the system? And is that then, let's really focus on some improved operating hours here and here, because we know that that's, really important for people to access jobs and education as well. So it's, we are constrained, I'll be honest about that, within what we are able to do at mass on day one. But I think you're absolutely right to raise it, because it's such an important area, and really a barrier to people using public transport too. So in short, where we are able to do it within the existing resource, we're looking at that. But of course, there's an element of being able to build up to that over time, and fundamentally this will help us, because we'll be able to have the ticket sales coming back into the public sector, where then we can make choices then around how we reinvest those. I hope
you.
that hopes answer the question. Thank you.
I'll just leap in if I can, because I'm trying to fit my questions in where they connect to others. I appreciate that what you're trying to do here is create a network that's feasible and realistic to deliver within the existing envelope, because that's, you have to assume that these are the resources that we have. But I just wonder what data you've used to inform how best to gain that revenue and indeed increase the revenue so that we can move towards our aspirational position. Because I put it to you that if there are lots of people out there that would use the bus if it were available at 7:30 so that they could get to work, we're better off investing earlier in putting buses on earlier to get that revenue in and sort of continue that ball rolling. And similarly, have we looked at which groups are currently excluded from using the bus, who would want to use the bus? Have we looked at opportunities, for example, for young people with the £1 fare coming in? Have we looked at where is it that they need to get from and to, and does this network address that? Because surely that's where the opportunity is to get that revenue in.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so data is a really important part of this. And of course, our evidence base will become even more mature as we go through this. So right now, across all of Wales, the situation is better in South West Wales. We have a patchwork of access to bus data because, the deregulated market still means that is the data of the operators, whereas in a franchise, we will be able to directly see how routes are performing. So being really transparent about that in time will obviously be important. But in terms of what we have been able to do, like I said, we do have some data, so we have been pulling on that as part of this, and that's sort of, where are people traveling and why. We have access to mobile phone data, so we're not able to just see bus movements, but we can look at sorry, that was a really technical term for me. We can look at movements between any mode of transport and understand how people are generally travelling in the area too. So we've been able to sort of do an initial gap analysis, which has left us feeling comfortable that what we've delivered will work for most people, but of course there will be more gaps that we need to sort of deeper dive into over time and work through those. But within our finite resource, we feel comfortable with that. We've also been developing a bespoke cost model and a bespoke revenue model, and with modeling, of course, every time you run it, it becomes more mature and you learn from each iteration of that model. But that is helping guide us on our network planning and inform what the opportunities are, but also, ensure, which I'm sure is really important to all of us, that the proposals that we have are they are actually deliverable. I wouldn't want to stand here today and tell you that we had a deliverable network without knowing that to be true. So that's that's a really important piece of this. There's also been lots of helpful research then by Transport Focus. They recently did the Your Bus Journey, which provided some really helpful insights into attitudes and behaviours across all of Wales, but they specifically did a South West Wales report too, which has been really useful. So there's really a wealth of data out there. So it's basically the challenge for us is making sense of everything at our fingertips and increasingly getting more mature in the way that we plug that right back into the network planning. But I hope that does give you some assurance that we have been looking at a range of data and trying to feed that in so far as possible at every stage.
Okay, thanks, Maddie. If Councillors Evans and O'Connor will forgive me, I know that Councillor Lawson needs to leave in about 5 minutes, so I'm going to let her skip the queue, just so she has time to ask her question.
Oh, many thanks and apologies to my colleagues. I was thinking along similar lines to Councillor Anderson in my question, although mine was more geared towards the other end of the day, the later end of the day, and the nighttime economy, whether nighttime economy and regeneration is part of the consideration in the planning of some of these services. But it also kind of touches on a wider question about integration with other forms of transport like rail. I know rail is particularly important, and how much partnership working will there be between rail and the new franchising system? It's kind of my question.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully I can provide some assurance in that with Transport for Wales being the rail operator, I know of course there is a little bit of GWR in the mix as well. You know, that is absolutely one of our main areas of focus at the minute. So we have spent a lot of time looking at what does one network mean in terms of integrating between rail and bus and indeed other modes too. So it's certainly one of our big priorities. We have been able to bake in a little bit of enhancements. I know that there's some areas where just simply increasing the frequencies enables sort of better modal integration too. So we have done what we've been able to do within the base network, but I think there does remain that continued aspiration to build that up over time and make that even better. And you know, there are a number of proposals on the rail side as well that will be able to sort of slot together with this to make an integrated public transport network work for the people of South West Wales. And I suppose I really would share regarding the nighttime economy. I would completely agree. I think it is a really important point. I think we, like I said earlier, I think we do face the challenge of, you know, the deliverability of what is available within our resource. But if there are, you know, affordable opportunities that come within our available pot of resource, then we should be looking at that. It's just there will always be the question of where the priorities are, if that makes sense. So, but I think you're absolutely right to raise it, and I think it's, you know, a really key point. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, Chris Evans, Councillor Evans, you've been waiting very patiently.
No worries. Yeah, just going back to Cyril, Councillor Anderson's point. It's I think a big thing is getting people where they need to be and when they need to be. So, for example, having buses arriving into the quadrant at 10 to the hour, not 10 past the hour, first thing in the morning, is going to make it a lot easier for workers getting to work. Same with the hospitals, the university, the DVLA. If we're getting people there quarter past the hour that they're supposed to start, then it's going to be a non-runner. But can I just ask, is the base network, is that the minimum service standard that we can expect?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Okay. The other one is will it be more affordable in the long run for bus users?
So yeah, if I just quickly come on to the minimum service. So yes, with the caveat that we will obviously go through this engagement, take feedback on it. It may be subject to change following that engagement. So what we'll see now isn't definitely what will be there in 27. It'll be as we go through the engagement, we collect feedback and then make updates. Then in November time, then that'll be what we're seeking to take forward as the minimum service. And then in terms of it being more affordable, yes, so we're looking at so one ticket is part of this, having a sort of improved fares offer. So again, any choices that are made on fares do require additional funding support, and that's something that Welsh Government currently funds. So the £1 young person's fare is a really good example of that. That's that the Welsh Government have backed with that. But what we do see today is a fair amount of inequity across Wales in terms of the fares offered by different operators and so on across all of Wales. So what we're trying to work towards is a position where you know, the pricing structure is as consistent as possible, and that in turn, you know, does provide better value for money, but also you know, that customer trust, I suppose, that they know that the price they're paying will, you know, they can trust that TFW will offer them the best price available. So that's where we're sort of working towards. So I don't have any numbers to share with you right now, unfortunately, Councillor Evans, but it is something that we are diving into, and we do expect that our new pricing structure will, I suppose, on the whole, make things better for people.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do have one last one, if that's okay.
Go on.
It's at the moment in Swansea, we've got a couple of bus stops with green roofs. And I was just wondering, when you're talking about updating the bus stops, would we continue to have the ones with the green roofs, or possibly even solar panels on the top?
I'll just interrupt to say we've got more than a couple, Councillor Evans.
Yeah.
I think we can be very proud of our record on green roof bus
Absolutely.
stops. Over to you, Maddie.
So yeah, I can't comment on the specific design standards that are in place, but what I can say, because they are still being worked through at this point in time, what I can say though is that officers in Swansea Council are part of that discussion, and what's really important is that, you know, TFW can't decide what the look and feel of bus stops should be for all of Wales. We really need that local input. So we've set up a dedicated task and finish group with local authority officers across Wales, and we know that Swansea have you know, been really instrumental in that. So again, really like to thank you know, officer colleagues for their support in that. I'm sure in time, as those design standards become more readily available, then we'll be able to dive into, yeah, what does the green roof and the solar panel standards look like there too. So thank you.
Thank you. Right, I'm going to come to Councillor O'Connor because she's not had a question yet and she's been waiting very patiently.
Thank you very much. Yeah, just two questions, please. The first one was, I think Councillor Lawson did touch on it actually, about integrating with the trains and the buses. Obviously, a lot of people from, you know, many different wards, but I'm just going to use this as an example because it's in my ward, say Limeslade to Cardiff. You know, if you were driving there just over an hour, but otherwise, obviously, to get the bus and then to get the train, and the train is what, 14.40 as it is currently, without having to then take your car and then cost of car parking, etc. So yeah, just reassurance really that it's going to be cheaper, and will a combined rate be the bus and the train together as one? And again, somebody mentioned earlier about going earlier in the morning if somebody needs to be in Cardiff at 8 a.m, etc. That was my one, just seeking reassurance on that really. And then the second one was the drop-in on the 6th of August, I think you mentioned, for the Austrian Centre, what time that would be, please? Thank you.
Okay.
Maddie, sorry, can I just, again, this connects to one of my questions. I've been through the consultation form online. I've not completed it. I've just clicked through it to see what it looks like. And I appreciate you've got the map and the list to try and, you know, various types of thinkers to kind of try and connect with them. But the thing that I think it's missing is an ability to search. If I, like the route that Angela just Councillor O'Connor just went through. So if I live in Mumbles and I want to get to the train station for 8:30 to catch the train, 8:23 or whatever time it goes, does the timetable that you're proposing allow that? And does the interchange in the bus station allow that? Because I think, you know, for it's very assumptive, I think, the way the form is set out at the moment, that you only need one bus in your journey, and that isn't going to be the case for most people in Swansea. So I'm just wondering whether that's something maybe in the face-to-face sessions, or maybe as you develop the online platform, that you could look at, is for people to be able to search the connectivity between routes.
Yes. So at the moment, we haven't gone down to timetable level, and that is really on the basis that the timetables, we're still 2 years away from franchising, and this will morph with the current network. So as things continue to change and evolve in the current network, which, you know, operators are still able to make changes as part of the deregulated market, then we need to sort of reflect those that evolution in our plans to some extent. So we've decided at this point not to go into timetable detail at this stage. However, what will be really important is as we, head towards go live, we do have that communication engagement period with people to make them aware of sort of proposed timetable changes as well, that would be coming in. But for that reason, we sort of at this point just started with routes and frequency. But I really like your idea. I think integrated journey planning is certainly something that is a priority for us here. We are working on a sort of digital platform where people will be able to plan multimodal journeys, but that will just take a little bit of time to get up and running, as these technologies do sometimes. We did look at actually a few options in terms of what could work for the public engagement, but we were constrained within what we were able to put out, with the timescales that we do have. But I think what I'd really like to do is sort of take stock of that as we go through the process and learn, because of course this isn't the only engagement that will be done on the network. This is we think the start of a continued conversation with the public about bus services in their area, especially as we transition into a sort of BAU position. Just in terms of the integrate on that point then around the ticketing specifically, with trains. So our proposals are right now that we would be able to integrate tickets bus to bus, but where we really want to be is for those tickets to work between bus and trains as well. We've successfully piloted in some areas of Wales some bus to train ticket solutions which are working. We've proved that we can make things cheaper and more effective for people traveling between the two modes. So I think really, really positive pilot results there. It's really then just a case of being able to scale out the technology. But it's, I think if we come back to that strap line of the vision of one network, one timetable, one ticket, that's, really, really critical for us. So, may not be there on day one, but please take our assurance that it is absolutely something we're working towards. And then
I just think it's really, I just think it's really important that they do link up. If you want people to use it, it has to be more reliable, it has to be quicker, and it has to be cheaper than it currently is. And not everyone works just in Swansea. Some people work further away. A lot of people do, particularly more people working from home. When they are having to go to work, it may be further away. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And that's where we want to be, isn't it? That we, build up the services to work well together so that they can get people where they want to go at the times they need. Absolutely agree with you. And then Councillor, just on the 6th of August, I'm just checking in the Mumbles, it would run from 10 a.m. to 1:45 p.m. So, and I'm in possibly either afterwards, or if I'm able to share in the chat, I can put the list of community drop-in events and the venues that we do have for everyone to see too.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, I've got 2 more members indicating, and I've only got through 3 of my 10 questions by interrupting, and we've got maybe 10 minutes left on this item. So I'm going to come to my 2 colleagues first, but if I can ask you to be brief. So Councillor Anderson and then Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Chair. Just going on to Councillor Anna Lawson's comments on the late night economy. Are you aware the last train out? I know we should be talking about buses, but the last train out to Swansea is 10:30. And people that come from Cardiff that like to come to the second biggest city in Wales, struggling, then they've got to leave early. Is there any chance of changing the timetables on that? And secondly, as Councillor Fogarty is our champion on climate change and all that, our new bus is going to be electric, hydro. Could you give us a bit of feedback on that?
Absolutely. Councillor Anderson, I do apologise. I'm probably not best placed to advise on the rail timetable, with myself focusing so much on bus. You know, I'm happy to take that one away. I suspect, you know, very much as we've discussed, there's of course a balance in terms of what we're able to do within the limits that we're working towards, but do let me take that away. And then on yeah, on the buses themselves, we are looking at, of course, in Swansea, there's there's the potential hydrogen pathfinder, where we may be able to trial some hydrogen technologies. We are looking at electrification. And then, we aren't able to employ some of those new technologies, then we would still like to purchase some newer diesel vehicles too, with the vision of them being sort of Euro 6 standard rather than the Euro 3s that exist today. So what is likely is for there to be a sort of blended approach in the first instance, with then a move then over time to a sort of fully zero emission fleet. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Baker.
The bus app versus First Cymru's bus app. I live right on the bus stop. I'm putting up with all the bus firms. What it is, when no bus turns up, say 20 past 8 in the morning, you got people waiting for the bus, which take you in town by 10 to 9 to get to work. It doesn't show up on the app. It says the bus is there. It's like a ghost bus going around on the app, but it doesn't come up cancelled, which leaves people by the bus stop stranded, and they're depending now on the app lately. I noticed that. They depend a lot on the app. You never see it coming up. This one is cancelled. And it is really annoying, that is, when people are waiting for a bus home or to go to work. And you think, oh, it says it's due, and it doesn't turn up, and you're stranded there.
I'm just going to be fair to Maddie, I don't think you're answerable for the faults of the First Bus app.
Yeah.
Well, but a pertinent question would be, are there plans for Transport for Wales to have an app and keep it updated if there are routes cancelled? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. There are plans for there to be an integrated journey planning app, as sort of touched on briefly earlier. What we've also done is develop what we call the Welsh Bus Data Service, where we're able to collect real-time information from the buses and feed those through to bus stop displays that display digital timetables too. So completely sympathise with yourself, Councillor Baker. There is nothing more than frustrating than being told a bus is coming and then it to sort of disappear and not be traceable anywhere. So yeah, good data quality will be really key for us in keeping those service updates as accurate as possible.
Great, thank you. We're not going to get through all of my questions in the last few minutes, but I just want to, well, I will mention that I'm disappointed not to see more through routes in the proposed space network, i.e. connecting the 2 and the 4 to take you all the way through from Mumbles to Morriston as one through route, because that would mean that people have got access from the west side of Swansea to the train station direct without having to interchange at the bus station. And those 2 buses are on the road already. I don't know why we can't just connect them within the same envelope. But I do want to ask some important questions around the consultation itself. So I'm really pleased to hear that those additional face-to-face sessions are going to go ahead, because I think that's really important feedback that you've had from Swansea colleagues. I think it would also be really valuable to write to ward members, specifically highlighting the changes that are going to occur to routes in their area, because we are uniquely placed to be able to engage with residents, highlight those changes and what the implications may well be for our residents, and encourage them to respond to the consultation. And I wonder what other asks there are of local authorities and other partners in terms of promoting the consultation. We have got Jason Rogers from our communications team on the call at the moment, and we want to see the best possible bus service for our residents, and we will do what we can to support with that. So I'm wondering what ask has been made of local authorities, or what partnership working is happening. And then I've had a couple of things flagged to me around, as I mentioned earlier, specific groups who rely on public transport, who perhaps aren't able to access it for various reasons at the moment. One group would be disabled people, and transport is a major theme in the Welsh Government's work around disabled disability rights. So I'm wondering what thought has gone into particularly engaging with them to see whether this proposed network addresses their needs. And as I've mentioned, young people. So I think it's a fantastic announcement from the Welsh Government that they're subsidising the £1 fares for young people, because for me, I, as a young person, I had really cheap bus routes available to me, and it's set me up with a habit for life. So I think that's really important. I note in having very quickly clicked through the survey that there's no demographic data that you're collecting. So you're not collecting age, you're not collecting disabled status, or any other demographic data. But personally, I think it's really important that we collect on all 9 protected characteristics when we're undertaking this sort of work, because you say it's really important to you to hear from a wide range of people, but how will you know if you've not collected that information? And the other thing I would add to that demographic side of things, which wouldn't be covered under the Equality Act, is who you're travelling with. Because the questions around, is it more important for you to have a route that comes to a bus stop near you, or are you happy to walk a bit further so that you get a quicker route? Well, for me, that depends whether I've got a toddler and a baby in tow, or it's just me on my way into work. And I do behave differently depending on whether I'm with the family or whether it's just me. And I think that's really important to understand people's responses. So yes, I've thrown a lot at you there, but basically what I want to make sure is that we're doing everything we can to support a consultation that really, really reflects what the people of Swansea need from their bus service.
Thank you, Councillor Fogarty. I will try to respond in order, but please do prompt me if I have missed anything that you would like me to respond to. Alistair, might I be able to bring you in, please, just in relation to the 2 and the 4, and just before you do, I think that you may have seen in the engagement we do ask around choices, and I think that having that having the feedback from the public in terms of willingness to interchange, to have better connections, will be potentially really helpful for us in refining those proposals. But I'm not sure, Alistair, if there was anything specifically you'd like to add in relation to the 2 and the 4.
Yeah, so although we haven't linked the 2 and the 4, we are proposing to link the 3A with the 28. So you would get Mumbles to station through access with that, and also on weekdays linking the 29 with the X6. So that would give you Sketty and Uplands to the station links as well. We did look at joining the 2 and the 4 together, but there was some concern from the officers that the traffic congestion that can occur down at Oystermouth at popular times could adversely affect a route like the 4 in particular with its reliability. But it's certainly, as you know, it's something that is still open at the moment, and we're still happy to look at.
Brilliant. Thank you, Alistair. In terms of writing to ward members, this is very much in progress at the moment, actually, and we hope to be issuing something, very shortly. We'd just like to confirm the dates of the Townhill and Morriston events so that all the information can go out at one. But that has been through some iterations with Swansea colleagues, and will hopefully be on its way shortly. So very much happy to do that. Alistair and myself are also just working through some of the descriptions, just to sort of take stock of some of the feedback that we've had and see if there's any, further clarity that we're able to share on those two to help people interact with the descriptions of the proposed changes. Then in terms of how the local authorities and indeed other partners can help with this, myself and Jason have, I think, have exchanged a brief email dialogue, but essentially little things like getting information out at bus stations and stops to advertise the engagement will be incredibly helpful. First Cymru have agreed to help by publicising the engagement on the buses that they run in the area as well. And then we're actually working with the Community Transport Association too, to sort of see how they're able to help have reach into communities alongside these sessions as well, to hear from as many people as possible. I agree with you, Councillor Fogarty, that the focus on young people is really important. That age bracket between 15 and 20 really can make a difference when young people are deciding whether to take their driving test or learn to drive. Instilling those those sustainable behaviors at that age can really reap rewards in the long run. As you point, you've gained habits for life there. So it is important. You raise a really good point around collecting the demographic data. So I will take stock of this with the team that run the platform, because it was my understanding that registrations to the platform capture some insight that would help us ensure that we've got good reach. But I will take stock and review that just to make sure that we are aware of, fully aware of all the groups that we are actually hearing from. We do collect postcode information, which to some extent can help a little bit with that, but not in full. So we'll take that away, but we would be able to look at what areas of Swansea we are hearing from with that. And I really liked the point about understanding who you're traveling with. At this stage, we'll face challenges in terms of updating the survey itself. We've actually we've had a quite high number of response rates within the past 2 weeks of it being live, but actually that might be something that we could look at exploring through some of the in-person engagements, and possibly a focus of the stakeholder workshops too. So happy to look at that. And like I said, I think with this being this is the beginning of a continued conversation. So I'd be really happy to take stock of, in any way that benefits council colleagues, what worked well and what didn't work well, so that the next time that we do this, because there will be a next time that we're having conversations about the network with stakeholders and the members of the public, we can make that even better than where we started. So I hope that helps answer your question. Were there any sections that you wanted me to come back on in any more detail, or anything that I missed there?
No, that's great. You've done well there, Maddie. Jason, though, I think you just wanted to come in, and I've seen Jane indicating as well.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to sort of re-emphasise what we're doing. As Maddie said, we made contact fairly recently just to find out what's going on, what their plans are in terms of social media activity. So our aim will, be to share whatever they put out. We've got some social media planned for either tomorrow or Wednesday, depending on translations, that will just point people towards the survey, specifically about the go sign and drop in, because what we'll do is we'll time our social media so that it's timely, not too far ahead of when those events are taking place. Sometimes people can forget, so we'll try and time those as best we can. I think as well, Chair, you already mentioned that you wanted people to for us to write to the ward members. And for me, you know, whatever comms we do, it'll be, you know, members are going to play an important part. I'll work closely with Councillor Stevens and the passenger transport team just to try and get them to use their own social media accounts. There's lots of community Facebook accounts that a lot of the members are active on, so we need to make as much use of those as we can. You know, and that should hopefully, you know, get as many people as we can to take part in the survey. I'm just wondering as well, we've got, I know we've got a drop in at the bus station, correct me if I'm wrong, but I wonder also as well, outside of the drop in, whether there's a way we can publicise the survey there, whether it's with little business cards with a survey link on, or whether there's a poster that people can scan their phones on, something like that, where we can capture those people. That would be useful.
Yes, absolutely. So yes, sorry, really good point, Jason. We are going to provide business cards with a link to the survey so that people can take that away. And also there'll be banners at the in-person events then with QR codes and so on. We're also hoping that we can get this through our IT colleagues, but have a you know, a number of devices with us then that we can, you know, we can assist people in person to take them through the survey and give their feedback. And I've been speaking with the CTA about just how we are able to make the room sort of like a journey through the materials that are on display too. So we'll continue to sort of dive into that. But your support is hugely welcome. So thank you so much for progressing with the social media posting too. Thank you.
I do think we probably have connections to specific groups as well. I mean, just around the point around disabled access, I think we probably do have, you know, ways of linking you up to have to particularly talk to people who, you know, different life experiences. Jane.
Thank you, Councillor Fogarty. It sort of strikes me that obviously this is all part of the 2050 agenda, and it's not to sort of miss opportunities. So obviously we've got our Swansea Project Zero with all our partners, all that we've got that new web page. And if we're able to put that link up onto the web page and get people to participate with that, we're getting quite a few hits on that web page now. So that would be really good. I just would like to think about joining this all up a little bit more, because, you know, we're putting the strategy out, and hopefully that will be going out and being launched in the autumn. So that is our Resilient Swansea climate adaptation strategy, and obviously transport is quite a lot in there. We had a lot of feedback on transport on the workshops that we ran across Swansea last year, which I would be happy to share with you so that you can actually see what we've got. But we also had, you know, quite a number of participants that we have still got email addresses for, so we could get that out as well. I just want to make sure that we're joining all this up, because otherwise it's just missed opportunities. We've got that branding. People are actually beginning to recognise it around Swansea now, and it would be really good to try and get that out as well at that particular point. And also, when we come to do any communications, can I ask everyone, please, to make sure that they put hashtags on the social media communications, because it really helps us in being able to trace what's been going out, so that when things like the scorecards, when we have to do the climate scorecards yet again in a couple of years' time, we can actually just trace what's actually going. So it would be, you know, hashtag climate change, hashtag Swansea Project Zero, and hashtag public transport, and we would be able to really be able to trace what we're putting out, and that would help us a great deal with who we're communicating with and how we're getting things out there. It's just a couple of points, if that's okay. Thank you.
That's really helpful, and I think a really good place for us to finish on this item. I thank colleagues from the other item who've been very patient, but as you can see, a lot of interest in this, and you know, the fact that we have been sort of following this in anticipation in the STC, we finally feel like we're at a point where great, we're going to see some tangible change now, and we just want to really push to make sure that that's as beneficial to our residents as possible. My proposal for committee members is that I just draft a short note to Transport for Wales just summarising in writing all the points that have been raised by members, because I think they are the really salient points that are, you know, at the top of our heads, because they're the things that residents talk to us about all the time. And I just want to make sure that, you know, you've got that for your when you're data crunching in October, that, you know, that's factored in. But I encourage us all, both as individuals, in our communities, connect with organisations, to submit consultation responses as well, because I know that that is where you're going to be focusing, where you look. So yeah, thank you very much for coming, and we look forward to seeing you again, I'm sure, and particularly looking at yeah, further engagement on timetabling. I'm looking forward to getting into the weeds of that. Thank
Brilliant.
you very much.
Thank you very much for making time in your agenda for us to come along today as well. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to that as well, Councillor Fogarty. So I'll speak to you later about it. Bye.
Goodbye.
Lovely. You are very welcome to stay on Commemorative Woodland, but they've already gone. So we'll move on now to agenda item 5, which is a report following on from the notice of motion on our Commemorative Woodland. I'll just check, Councillor Anderson, did you want to say a few words of introduction on this item, or will I hand over to Paul?
Just a thank you to you and the committee, Chair, for inviting us today. And it'll be remiss of me not to thank Paul for all the hard work he's put into this on my behalf and his team members. I'll just hand over to Paul now if you've got any questions, Chair.
Thank you. Over to you, Paul.
Thank you, Chair. Briefly take members through the report, which seeks to progress a notice of motion for a living tribute to commemorate all those from Swansea who have given their lives in service. I think it originally was stemmed from the names on the Swansea cenotaph, but I think once we sort of look into it a bit more, it's not as straightforward as that. Certainly with the administrative boundary of Swansea changing over the period, and numerous other sort of memorials around the area. So we're talking initially about just under 2,700 names, but it could be as many as double that in actual fact. Another issue is the amount of land that would be taken up to accommodate that number of trees. For the purposes of the report, we're talking about the number on the cenotaph, and sort of putting that in context, it'd fill up half a Singleton Park, and there isn't that land available, and certainly not within the urban area or urban fringe to plant trees, and that is a difficulty we're experiencing regardless of this proposal, is finding suitable locations for planting. There are various approaches to how we could tackle this. And I think the one that we kind of focused in on is that to align this with our current tree planting strategy, which aims to plant around 300 standard size trees a year. That is scattered at various locations across the city and county. Again, we focused in on standard trees as they have the best chance of surviving, and certainly you wouldn't be able to sort of carry that exercise if you were just trying to attribute it to whip planting, which has a very low level of success in terms of development to maturity. There's also then the linking in with each tree with an individual. How would that work? And again, with everything scattered across the county, you couldn't put up a board as such. Very difficult to maintain any sort of physical plaque or something on the site. So the proposal is that it would be recorded, not necessarily through a physical QR code or something like that, but in terms of the location through sort of GIS and what 3-word type approach. So not introducing clutter along with the planting of the tree, and then it's linked back to a website. And the further difficulty is that for the most part we rely on grants to provide us with the trees that we plant each year. There's no guarantee that that grants will continue in perpetuity. It's roughly around about 300 trees a year, which is our target. Sometimes it's slightly more, sometimes slightly less. Bearing in mind we've only got the planting season is 6 months as well. So and we're relying very much on the tree services unit to plant those trees with the equipment they have. All the sites have to be ground truthed, but the main cost is actually it's not the tree or the planting, it's the aftercare and the maintenance, which can be quite substantial. It's nearly £2,000 for over the lifespan of a year of a tree, and that's mainly in the early years when it becomes starts to become established and they become more self-sustaining then. So including a report of the various costs, and you can see they could be they add up quite considerably if we were just trying to do this from scratch on a open piece of land, which really isn't feasible. So I say what we've gone for a more pragmatic way forward, which is say to link it with the rollout of our annual planting. And we've liaising closely with Tree Services Unit as well as archives, and we'd sort of update the sort of online map on an annual basis, add in 300 plus names per annum. So it could take 9-10 years for just the cenotaph names. And we'd have to take stock then of where we are if we wanted to go beyond that. I think that's a brief overview of where we're at. And then obviously the recommendation then is that it's reported to Cabinet that we go forward on this basis, reflecting the tree planting strategy we have.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Are there any questions or comments from colleagues? Yeah, Councillor Baker.
I've been a pain in the butt. My comment, Dove Road, I did say this in the beginning, I think it was either last year or the year before, about the trees we planted on Dove Road through Pobble, programme going with Pobble. It was just after COVID. We lost a few people with COVID on the estate. And they come up with the idea, they wanted trees, and they said, could we plant them? Because that road, we had all the proper people in doing the thing, finding make sure there's no cables, all planted up. And fair play, there's only 1, 2, 3 trees have been vandalised. That was by the horses, rubbing up against them, and they were young and they will snap them. More barriers need to be put around them, like we did with a few of them. But otherwise, these trees we planted just over 2-3 years ago are springing up lovely. Even the one I planted for my late husband, the silver birch, it's absolutely stunning. And it have worked because we had the children of these people who passed away. You get grandchildren involved and the children involved to putting these trees in. There's no way they're going to damage them.
Yeah, thank
and
you.
it have worked well. Okay, say adopt a tree scheme. That was sort of thing that happened up there.
Or an informal adopt a tree.
Yeah. We put them in, and the children put them in, and that was their tree. That's their family tree, and they are looking after it. This is the same as we could do with the cenotaph trees. Look back on the families. Families bound to know my parents' great granddads on there. And perhaps they would like to contribute or come along and plant it or tend to the tree. Only once a year we asking people to go over and have a look at their tree to make sure there's nothing wrong with it. And it is working, and it's working well.
Yeah, that actually connects to question or comment I was going to raise around if I think the proposal is really smart. I think it sees alignment with our wider strategy and adds value in the way that Councillor Baker is describing. You know, better community engagement with our green spaces means that they are less likely to be vandalised and more likely to be looked after. And I agree with the proposal not to put a QR code or any sort of plaque next to the tree because they're very difficult to maintain, and once it goes missing, you know. But there is a risk then, isn't there, that that tree goes in on a random Thursday and the family or the you know the network of that person aren't necessarily even aware that that tree has gone in. So I'm wondering, is there capacity? I mean, there's already kind of a bit of admin, isn't there, around getting the record up on the website, albeit the website's free to host, etc. Is there capacity for there to be a bit of join up with whether it be surviving relatives or the Veterans Association or whoever, to support with the planting perhaps or the maintenance, even if not for every single tree, with some. So in my ward, also very, very positive experience of tree planting, partly because the tree officer at the time was very, very thoughtful in what tree goes where. So we've got, you know, on our streets, we've got trees with tiny little leaves that biodegrade in no time. So there's no, you know, additional foliage in the autumn and that kind of a thing. But we were also able to connect up with the youth club to help with, you know, some planting, and that has really sort of meant that those trees are community owned. So I'm just wondering to what extent that's feasible within this proposal, but the wider tree strategy as well, to sort of, yeah, encourage a bit more community involvement.
Certainly, when you're looking to plant, you know, the right tree in the right place is important. The protection measures, as well. The prior engagement we've undertaken, certainly as part of the planting with the Welsh Housing Quality Standard, the wider environmental program we've got there, that we've undertaken a lot of engagement with local residents, and that has ensured that the trees for the most part survive and are not sort of chopped down in the middle of the night. I think where you haven't got that engagement, then yeah, there's not that sense of ownership and support, then yeah, there is a high degree of risk that we will lose the trees. I mean, I think it is a difficult one, and I wouldn't want to overcommit early on. I think speaking of the tree services unit, you know, these are trees that you need machinery to put in. It's not someone can come along and give a hand and put in, and there's various health and safety issues, and they'll say they may be planting a particular area in a particular day, the weather or something, some other emergency may crop up, so you can't always guarantee they would be in a particular location at a particular time. And then it's coordinated with the naming of it. We speaking to Martin Bignell in Tree Services Unit, what we were thinking of doing is seeing how it would work in terms of retrospectively now putting the names to the ones he's planted last year, and then going out. As they're going out and checking and doing the maintenance, seeing how they survive, because not all of them will survive. Majority of the standard trees they plant do survive, and that's why we've sort of suggesting that that's the approach, and learn from that. You know, how easy it is to for the general public perhaps to identify the trees from what, through words or from a map. The ages would be starting on. I mean, I think a lot of the families, they're probably limited family connections, certainly, because the first ones coming up will be First World War. Trying to track any families from then would be very difficult, certainly, but given that most of the records were destroyed in the Second World War Blitz, which is why we can't really do family histories on a lot of them, and some will be just W. Thomas or something like that. We'd have no opportunity to track those individuals down. I think there have to be some sort of I think build up of knowledge of this and people to get more proactively involved rather than us reaching out. I think certainly in the first instance till we know. The other issue, of course, is then what happens a couple of years down the line and someone does identify a tree and then the tree perhaps dies or is chopped down or whatever. We would have to look then to reallocate another tree, which again would be feasible. But if someone then has been a part of that planting and celebrating on that particular one tree, if you like, commemorating that one, and then that tree goes, I'm not quite sure what the reaction would be. Say, well, it's no longer there. We've moved it to another part of the city, or there might be a demand. Or well, our family's already from here. We want a tree somewhere near us, which we may not be able to where they live. We may not be able to provide. I'm just speculating on this, and I think it's just perhaps a little bit early to get into the nitty-gritty of how it's going to work in practice till we've done it run it for a year or two.
I take on board all of those points. Working with the community is not without its fraught, we know. But I think I just would put it to you to ponder on some of those suggestions and work out what might be feasible. Councillor Evans.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest it might be a good idea with this one to get input from Councillor Wendy Lewis as the Armed Services Champion, to see what her thoughts on it are.
I'm not certain on that. No. Yes, we can certainly do that as part of the when we look to roll this out, assuming we get to that stage.
Yeah. So in terms of the implementation, I'm sure Councillor Anderson, you'd be very happy to work with Councillor Lewis on some of the suggestions put forward.
It'd be a good idea, Chair. Sorry for butting in. Yes, I can work well with Wendy on that. So, and I can update them, Paul, sorry, on anything that comes through.
Great. Okay. Are there any other comments or questions? I just wanted to confirm, apologies if I've missed this in the report. So completely understand that if we were to put all the woodland in one place, there is just not a piece of land that size in the city and county of Swansea. But we have confirmed that there is enough places to plant enough trees to get to our 10-year point, albeit spread out across the city and county.
There are a large number of areas which is council owned that we could plant, but they all need to be ground truthed, and that's we can't say for certain, but for the services and any other plans or proposals for those areas of land. So there is extensive mapping of where trees physically go, but well, at least theoretically, but whether they in practice they can go. We're just doing that on an ad hoc basis, if you like, rolling out where there's demand for trees to be planted, perhaps from a local ward member, or as part of regeneration schemes, or etc. So it's quite a big piece of work to ground truth the land, but I think we do own a lot of land as an authority. And we're confident that there's enough land to plant this number of trees and more.
Thank you. Councillor Baker, did you want to come back in?
The government now with the farmers, they're offering the farmers with the trees. And it's support grants for trees. How about if we, with the farmers, know what I mean? Support the farmers on this, whether they go for a grant for it or not. But they are asking, Andrew will know more on the grounds of that. I've just been fed in by people that I know what I mean, Andrew? And they say, yeah, all right, but it's taking up a lot of their grazing lands then and a lot of different things. But the government do want them to plant more trees on their lands. So there's an initiative now, they could move.
Yeah, thanks for that, Myra. You can't have any of our farm to plant any trees on, if as far as that goes. But yeah, there is the woodland creation grants, I believe, with Welsh Government. Now, I think the part that you were actually referring to, which is the percentage, 10% coverage or whatever, with the sustainable farming scheme that was initially put forward, that ended up being, quite rightly, very controversial. My understanding in terms of that is that they've relented slightly on that in discussion with farmers across, by them I mean Welsh Government, in discussion with farms across Wales and farming unions and what have you, because and they are changing to more of habitat creation, because not all area is the same, and quite rightly it's as was said earlier, it's right tree in the right place, you know, and I'm sure there's lots of farms that would welcome additional tree planting where suitable, for whether it be for shelter belts for cattle or what have you, but that doesn't mean that it's suitable to do that on all farms. So whereas if we can do other things in terms of conservational grazing, mixed grasslands, meadows, and things there, as well as maybe ponds, or there's so many different things we can use to vastly improve biodiversity that can actually work hand in hand with food production, rather than be enforced effectively just into tree planting because we got to hit this target, you know. So that's from a food and farming perspective from me, because at the end of the day we all need to eat, and we need to assure that there's sufficient land for us to do that, and hopefully address the climate change and going forward as well, or at least do what we can to mitigate it, because let's face it, this year is a testament really to that there is certainly a changing climate. We've seen it in terms of what we're doing on farm and the reduction in crops and what have you, given that we had you know, it was quite cold, in fact, in the beginning part of the year, very dry as well, you know, grass wasn't growing. Then we had a bit of a wet period, and now we're going back to a blazing hot summer, you know, which is not really helping many places across the UK, really. So, but I think we need, going forward, we need to understand what we can do to adapt to that as well. So it's slightly off topic, really, isn't it? But
Well,
It's only just a thought.
that's the nature of this committee, that it all speaks to each other, and so it should. But I wonder if, taking on board everything you've said, but where farmers are looking to plant trees, is there opportunity for people to come forward, or even, you know, private homeowners in their back gardens, to have a tree assigned in this way? Is that an avenue that's worth exploring, or is it better to keep them on council land?
I would recommend it's limited to council land. I mean, certainly if people wanted to, you know, access the tree, or, you know, people, if there's come out of the tree, they like to put flowers certain times of year, it wouldn't work if it was on privately owned or agricultural land.
Yeah, Councillor Stevens, thank you for that answer.
Just a second what Paul said. In fact, the nature conservation team can be very helpful in terms of directing residents to various grants that could be available for a number of different biodiversity and nature initiatives. So there's nothing preventing that in particular. People getting advice on where they can go to if they did want to tap into these kind of things. I think some energy companies do some. I mean, for example, I think our town council clerk, once upon a time, he applied to OVO Energy for their tree whips, and he ended up with, you know, 10,000 tree whips in the front room of his house in order to try and plant about the place. But so there are avenues that people who do want to do these kind of things can potentially find some trees and whatever to plant. But I don't think I'd be interested. I don't think I would want to get into that pushing people in terms of in order to do it, or potentially landowners, you know, especially if they're using that land for production. So it's a very sensitive conversation that
Point
needs
well
to be
made.
done in collaboration with the farming industry and yeah. So.
Yes, and I was not proposing at all that it's to encourage people to plant trees. It was more that if they are going to plant a tree, would they like to? But I agree with your point about access, and actually maintaining access to these, these green assets is really important. I can't see anybody else indicating. The recommendation in your packs is that the notice of motion be reported to Cabinet with a recommendation of support on the basis of the proposed way forward, which Paul has outlined, i.e. that the sort of assigning of trees is done as the planting of trees in line with our tree strategy is progressed over the next 10 years. As we've got the Cabinet member on the call, Councillor Anderson, I think I would, just like to underline that proposal from committee around exploring ways to enhance community engagement and involvement with the tree strategy as a whole. But on this, it seems that there's very natural community engagement links with this particular project. But I don't think we need to make any, amendments on the recommendation. It's just for you to have in mind as you report this to Cabinet. So on that basis, can I take a vote on the recommendation as it's written? All those in favour? And of those on the call, that's unanimous.
Yeah.
So that is agreed. Okay. Doing well today. So the last item on our agenda is the work plan. The eagle-eyed amongst you will have noticed that there are some updates to the work plan from that which we discussed last time. Just by way of background, that is partly to provide some clarity around some of the items. So for example, the 2 sustainable transport strategy items, one of them we've been able to say will be around EV charging. So just to kind of make sure that we're all clear on like what the focus of some of these items will be. There's a couple of things that need to move around just for operational reasons. And I think now we've got a work plan that coalesces around 4 main themes. So those are transport. The buses has obviously been a really important part of that today, but that will be continued then looking at EV and looking at our own council sustainable transport strategy later in the year. We've got green infrastructure with a number of items coming throughout the year, which I won't list out, but that's a really important theme that we've got running throughout the year. We've got the adaptation and mitigation strategy, which is just so meaty that it's kind of its own thing. And then we've got waste, which we've got the waste strategy obviously on the work plan as it is, but we'll be in touch with Councillor Stevens to talk about when we can bring some work around the sustainable food policy as well, with the aim of reducing food waste. So that is for your information, but if there are any comments or any proposed changes, I will take them now. There being none, that brings us to the end of the meeting. Thank you, everybody. It's been a bit of a marathon, but really, really good discussion today. So thanks for your involvement.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you all.
Thank you.